Thank you so much for watching Landom Sea Goes There. Please subscribe and hit the like button and the bell notification button. An Officer and a Gentleman is a 1982 American romantic drama film that starred Richard Gere, Deborah Winger, and Louis Gossett Jr. The movie was written by Douglas Day Stewart and directed by Taylor Hackford. Its title comes from an old expression from the Royal Navy and later from the U.S. Uniform Code of Military Justice, with the charge of conduct unbecoming an officer and a gentleman. It's the story of Zach Mayo, who's a new member of the U.S. Navy, and he's got a bad attitude. When he signs up with the Aviation Academy, he is met with the strict leadership of Sergeant Foley, who gives Zach a rude awakening in terms of relating to other people. Through Foley's guidance and an unexpected romance with Paula, who's an outsider who hangs around the Navy base, Zach learns some tough lessons and discovers what he truly wants out of life. The movie was shot in late 1981 on the Olympic Peninsula of Washington at Port Townsend and Fort Worden. The U.S. Navy would not permit filming at NAS Pensacola in the Florida Panhandle, the site of the actual Aviation Officer Candidate School. The deactivated U.S. Army base of Fort Worden stood in for the location of this school. A real motel room at Port Townsend's The Tides Inn on Water Street was used for the film. There's a plaque outside the room noting that it was used as a filming location for the movie, although the room has been extensively refurbished. Some of the earlier scenes in the movie were filmed in Bremerton, where the ships of the Puget Sound Naval Shipyard are seen in the background. The Dilbert Dunker scenes were filmed in the swimming pool at what is now Mountain View Elementary School. This dunking machine was constructed specifically for the film and was an exact duplicate of the one that was used by the Navy. The filming location for Paula's house was at 1003 Tremont in Port Townsend. The house now has been shrouded by a large hedge and the front porch completely remodeled. But the neighboring homes and the landscape look identical to the appearance that they did in the film. In the movie, the plot has Paula leaving on a ferry ride away from the naval base. In reality, Paula's home is located approximately 8 blocks from Fort Worden. Lynette's house was located on Mill Road, just west of the main entrance of the Port Townsend Paper Corporation. The house no longer exists, but the concrete driveway pad is still visible. The interior of the USO building at Fort Worden State Park was used for the reception scene near the beginning of the film. The concrete structure used during the famous scene where Richard Gere says, "I've got nowhere else to go," is all filmed at the Battery Kinsey, located at Fort Worden State Park. That scene was filmed on the southwest corner of the upper level of the battery. The obstacle course was constructed specifically for the film and was located in the grassy areas just south and southeast of Battery Kinsey. The decompression chamber was one of the only sets constructed for the film, and as of 2013, it was still intact in the basement building of building number 225 of Fort Worden State Park. It can actually be seen through the windows of the building's basement. Richard Gere wasn't really too keen about doing this movie at all in the beginning, and he's stated many times that he did it strictly for money. It wound up being his biggest box office hit until he hit the jackpot again with Pretty Woman in 1990. Louis Gossett Jr. said that Richard Gere and Deborah Winger didn't get along very well at all during the filming, and they would distance themselves from each other while the cameras were not rolling. She publicly called him a brick wall, and he admitted that the tension between the two was very strong. Even though Gere was playing the title role and had top billing in the film and more screen time, he came to realize that Winger would knock his chops off with her charisma and steal every scene that she was in, resulting in an Academy Award nomination as Best Actress. Many years later, Gere was complimentary towards Winger when he said that she was much more open to the camera than he was. The casting for the role of Gunnery Sergeant Foley was a very difficult one. First, none of the A-list actors approached for the part were interested in it. And secondly, they just had trouble fitting somebody to that role. Finally, the producers did some research in Pensacola, Florida, and learned that all of the top drill instructors were all African Americans. This led to them casting Louis Gossett Jr. for this role, which would win him an Academy Award. Richard Gere really balked at the idea of shooting the ending of the film, in which Zach arrives at Paula's factory wearing his naval dress whites and carries her off the factory floor. He thought that this ending wouldn't work because he felt like it was too sentimental, and most of the production staff agreed with this idea. But during a rehearsal, the extras playing the workers began to cheer and cry. When Gere saw the scene later with the music played underneath and changing the tempo of the scene, it gave him chills. He's now convinced that the director made the right decision and the right call on this ending shot. Richard Gere and Louis Gossett Jr. were specially trained for the karate scenes that were used in the basic training sequences in the film. Gere had apparently mastered his karate moves, while Gossett reportedly continued to struggle with them even after being trained. Frustrated and not thinking clearly, Gere accidentally kicked Gossett in the groin during filming, to which Gossett responded by leaving the set very abruptly. He didn't show back up to the set for another 2 days after this. In order to keep the filming moving forward and not to fall behind in the shoot, they called in an African-American karate expert who stood in and doubled for Gossett. Richard Gere says he takes full responsibility for what happened during this scene, and he states that many years later, it hasn't ruined the friendship that developed between he and Gossett. He states that when they see each other, they often reminisce about how much they enjoyed making this film together. Although she was nominated for a Best Actress Oscar for her role in this film, and it remains her biggest commercial success, Deborah Winger doesn't like this movie. I think she had a few bad experiences with the film, both from the production side and from working with Richard Gere. She had negotiated her own contract. That means she didn't use an agent. All this was done before she had seen the actual revised script, and she wasn't happy with it when she found out that she would be doing a nude scene. She asked to be covered up for the scene, but was told that since she hadn't thought to ask for a no nudity clause in the contract, she would have to do this scene as written. And goodness gracious, what a scene it was. And it completely shocked the censors. You see, nude scenes are a dime a dozen in Hollywood, but this one rises to a different level. In the original scene, Deborah Winger was on top of Richard Gere, and she's moving her hips in a way that the censors just didn't approve of at all. The production company at first thought that they would appeal this problem to the censors, but then the director and Paramount Pictures opted to change their visuals on it slightly. They moved the shot in to be a closer shot so that you don't see quite as much of her rear end jostling back and forth. And doing this made it much less objectionable in the censor's eyes. When the scene is playing, take a look towards the bottom of the screen, and you'll see what they were trying to hide. It's not as apparent the way the final film ended up being viewed, but I would imagine the full shot of this was pretty intense. If you've never seen An Officer and a Gentleman, it's a great show to watch. If you have seen it, take another look at it. I think you'll really enjoy it. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll continue to chase the classics.